is hiring SDRs killing your pipeline? When founders see pipeline slowing down, the instinct is almost automatic. Let's just hire someone to run outbound. It feels like progress, because activity should turn into meetings, and meetings should turn into revenue. But hiring doesn't create a pipeline. It amplifies a system that already exists. And when that system isn't clear yet, the new hire doesn't fix the confusion. They inherit it. Hello everyone, my name is Lucas and welcome to AnyBiz.io's YouTube channel. When you start feeling pressure to generate pipeline, hiring an SDR often feels like the most logical response. The reasoning seems straightforward. If someone else takes ownership of outbound, meetings should begin to appear and the responsibility for generating pipeline should finally move off your plate. What many founders underestimate, however, is that hiring an SDR is not simply adding a person to help with sales. Because in practice, it means inserting someone into whatever outbound system currently exists inside your business. For that person to succeed, the environment needs far more than a list of prospects. It requires a clearly defined audience, a value proposition that resonates with your audience, messaging that turns that value into curiosity, and a structure that allows outreach to be tested and refined over time. Now, when those elements are missing, the new hire does not step into a system that produces learning. Instead, they inherit uncertainty about who to target, what to say, and which signals actually indicate progress. Most founders initially assume that real cost of hiring an SDR is the salary. But anyone who has actually hired someone before knows that the salary is only the visible number. Then come taxes, tools, ramp time, management hours, experimentation cycles. And suddenly the real cost looks very different from the number that appeared in the job description. The real cost begins to appear once the hire is already inside your business. But there's one action that actually has a real cost of 0. And you know what that is? Liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and ringing that bell. After that, let's ask the real question now. What actually happens after someone joins to run the outbound? Well, once the SDR begins, the explanation usually feels straightforward. They start prospecting, sending outreach, testing messaging, and ideally, generating meetings that begin to grow the pipeline. However, when a structured outbound system does not exist yet, that activity gradually turns into exploration rather than execution. The SDR experiments with different lists, messaging angles, and channels while trying to discover what might resonate with potential customers. At the same time, you often find yourself getting pulled back into the process, adjusting targeting, rewriting positioning, and refining outreach, in the hope that one of those experiments finally unlocks traction. Outreach continues, and activity increases, yet the learning process remains slow and unpredictable, because the underlying system was never clearly defined. As weeks pass, small signals appear and disappear, and it becomes just difficult to separate meaningful insight from random noise. And this is where the hidden costs begin to accumulate, because ramp time stretches longer than expected, and your attention becomes tied up managing experimentation instead of running the business. Which leads to a question many founders only ask later. Before hiring someone to run outbound, do you actually have a repeatable outbound structure? Because if the system is unclear, hiring does not remove the uncertainty, it spreads it. So what should exist before hiring begins? A reliable outbound motion begins with clarity about who you should be speaking to and why that conversation matters. When the ideal customer profile is clearly defined and the value proposition connects to a real pain point, messaging becomes easier to refine and outreach becomes easier to structure. Once those foundations exist, outbound stops feeling like improvisation and finally begins operating as a process, where each campaign produces signals that help you understand what actually resonates with your market. Now, the challenge is that building this structure manually often traps founders in a loop of managing tools, coordinating outreach across channels, and constantly adjusting campaigns. All of that while still trying to run the rest of the business. That is exactly where systems like AnyBiz change the starting point. Instead of hiring someone and just hoping they figured out outbound for you, the platform provides a structured outbound infrastructure that combines a large B2B contact database with automated multi-channel outreach across email, LinkedIn, and AI-driven phone calls. Automation handles consistent execution while you refine targeting, positioning, and messaging, which allows clarity to emerge before you decide whether hiring your first SDR even makes sense. So before you decide to hire someone to fix outbound, it's worth asking a different question first. Do you actually have a system that works? Or are you hoping the new hire will magically figure it out for you? Because outbound doesn't come reliable when you add headcount. It becomes reliable when the structure behind it starts producing clear signals about who to target, what message resonates, and which conversations actually turn into pipeline. So if this video gave you a different perspective on how to approach outbound before making that first hire, go ahead and like this video. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that beautiful bell so YouTube knows you're here for strategy and not just another send 10,000 code emails and hope for the best tutorial. And if you want to see what structured outbound infrastructure looks like before you even think about hiring your first SDR, you'll find AnyBiz link waiting for you in the description. Thank you for watching so far, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.